What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the Ripple Effect of Healing YouTube channel. Jay Chantalangsi here, emotion co-practitioner, energy healer, holistic wellness coach. And on this channel, we talk about healing, self-care, and some spirituality stuff. So excited to be here. This is my second episode. I do this every week on Monday, 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So in my first introductory episode, I talked about healing, right? I talked about how I came to where I am now, how I came from, where I was into, what I do right now as far as helping people release emotional trauma, release emotional energy from their bodies so they can live a happy, abundant life. And in this show, I'm going to be talking a lot about that, right? How we can live a better life, how we can let go of some of those traumas, how we can heal from some of those heartbreaks or traumatic events or grief. We are filled with a lot of trapped emotions, a lot of trauma. And sometimes we don't even know where the trauma comes from or if it was trauma or not. Most times the trauma shows up later on in life, right? Way later on in life, right? And we're so unaware of where it comes from, why we behave a certain way, why we think a certain way, why we can't move forward in our lives, why we feel stuck sometimes. These things happen because we carry these low vibrations. We're all made up of energy, right? And if we have these low vibrations and we carry these low energies, it can create a blockage of the things that's already meant for us, right? We have the ability to manifest, to attract anything and everything in our heart's desire. But if we carry these vibrations and low frequencies, then it can create a blockage, for us to not get those things. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that today. We're also going to talk about, the healing process, right? There's some misconceptions about, the healing process and what it entails or how much it takes. A lot of people don't want to go through it because they're afraid, and that's normal, right? That's a belief system that could be normal because most of us, don't want to face some of the traumas. Most of us don't want to face, that fear, that grief, that memory, of what brought us to where we are today. And unfortunately, that journey is a mandatory one, I believe, because in order for you to live a happy, abundant, loving life, right, you have to let go of that trauma. You have to let go of all those things that, brought you to where you feel these triggering emotions, right? Shout out to the Healing Tribe. Thank you for joining me tonight. Appreciate all of you. I love your faces. We could talk about the Healing Tribe as well. Everyone's welcome to join that. But back to the topic at hand, the healing process, right? The healing process. What happens when we feel emotions? What happens when we get into a lot of traumatic events? What happens subconsciously on a deeper level when we go through these events in our lives, right? Does it have to be a recent event or an event in the past? It could be anything, any event. But most of our trauma, it stems from our childhood, right? Because when we were children, we tend to be more open, more vulnerable, susceptible to all of these things externally that can influence us in a very negative way, right? And most people think trauma is like something major, right? Some type of abuse or, accident or, intense feelings. I mean, that's very traumatic too, but there's also things that could be, traumatizing for a young kid, right? Or children, like, never being picked up on time from school. That's very traumatic, right? Having to work at an early age, right? Having to take care of your siblings when you were younger, right? Um, being humiliated, even though it's, people might be playing around or might not take it as serious, but to a child, that's very traumatic. It can be very, very traumatic, and to the point where it can affect them later on in life, and they might not know it, right? They might grow up feeling like they're never enough. They might grow up feeling like they're, not good enough, or, have body image issues, right? All these things that happened in the past, it leaves a stamp in our subconscious mind that most of the time gets suppressed, and then it doesn't show up until later on in life, right? Psychologists teaches us that. And childhood trauma is very real. Most of us, like I mentioned, don't understand it. We can't make the connections of our current behaviors and thought processes and limiting beliefs connected to our childhood. Those of us that have been through therapy and, understand that, I myself included, right? We have a deep understanding of why we act and say and do the things that we do. For example, me had a pretty rough childhood, right? Parents were very emotionally unavailable, so I never grew up being able to express my emotions, right? I couldn't cry. I was the only son in an Asian household, so I had to toughen up, right? My whole upbringing. And as I got older, that really affected me because I got into, bad relationships. I was very angry. I couldn't express my emotions in a very healthy way. And if there was a, difficult conversation, I would just leave, right? That was my go-to behavior, would just leave the conversation, right? Leave the argument, because I just didn't want to deal with it. And that's not a healthy way to solve any type of argument, right? So all of those behaviors, we can track back to understand where it all started. And most of these behaviors started when we were younger, right? So we have to really pay attention, be aware of some of those things, and it may be hard to face, right? Once we start to realize those things and where it came from, it can make us very emotional. It could bring us back even to that specific event. And, because those are very scarring in our lifetime, right? And to understand that at a older age, that can even be very daunting, and it could be overwhelming. So, most of the clients that I work with, as far as the energy healing side goes, we do ask our clients, what their upbringing was like, and most everyone that we work with, they have had a pretty rough childhood, right? Narcissistic parents, or abusive parents, verbally, emotionally, physically, abusive, right? And that leaves all of these scars in us, that creates these different behaviors, right? So the process, when we first start, right, when we first make the decision to start the healing process, normally we come to this point in our lives where we definitely feel stuck. We don't know what to do. We are tired constantly, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually tired, right? We feel like we just are existing. Happiness is hard to come by, right? When you get to this point, you just feel numb all the time, So at this point, our soul, our spirit is pretty much screaming at us, right? To say, hey, we got to do something different. We got to change. We can't go on our lives living this way anymore. Something needs to give, right? We've all been there. I've been there. You know, some people say you hit rock bottom. Some people say you have a great awakening or a spiritual awakening. You know, it's not pretty, right? When we get to that point, because at that point, you know, we just feel like somebody else. We're not even ourselves. We've lost ourselves along the way, dealing with all of that trauma, being in survival mode for so long. We've become accustomed to just being numb and living life, you know, like a zombie, right? And it's hard for us to connect. It's hard for us to find inner peace and joy and happiness. It's hard for us to, um, you know, strive for our goals and dreams, right? We might even feel stuck financially, maybe in our relationships as well. We might be attracting the same type of people, right? So all those things are signs that maybe it's time to start this journey. And I always tell my clients and my students, it's a beautiful but necessary journey, right? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be rainbows and butterflies, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, you have to face some of these traumas. You have to face some of these events that have created these behaviors that you're experiencing now. And facing those experiences, even in energy healing, you know, can be a bit rough, right? Most of my clients that I work on, that I help them release some of these emotions, they get very emotional, right? The subconscious tends to bring up these memories consciously to their conscious mind. And then they, you know, get emotional, they start crying. Crying is a natural way to release energy. So I always tell people, do not hold back your tears. All right. If you need to cry, cry for however long and however much you need to. Okay. That is your body's natural way of releasing that emotional energy. We even cry when we're super excited and happy, right? The same thing. We're releasing those energies. We're releasing that energy that we don't want to get trapped inside of our bodies, right? Because trapped emotions is definitely something that could be very detrimental later on in life, right? And we'll talk a lot more about that in the coming episodes. But right now, we just want to focus on the healing process. So you're at this point where you just feel numb in life. You feel like something that needs to happen. Everyone around you is telling you you're not who you are, right? And you're going to work and you know, you don't enjoy your work. I mean, it's hard for you to even connect with your spouse or even your kids or your friends, right? They look at you and it's like, man, what's up with you, right? Definitely initial signs of, you know, you needing to start the process, right? And then you go through this acknowledgement stage, right? Like, you know, something needs to change. You've acknowledged that you need some healing, right? You say, you know, I've been dealing with this for so long. Something has to give. I know I have to do something, but you don't know what to do, right? You're unaware and you have no answers because you've been dealing with for so long. I've asked this question to so many of my students and, you know, our healing tribe as well. And some of, you know, some of them have been dealing with these, you know, issues or trauma for years, decades even, right? I mean 20, 30 years. That's a lot. That's a long time to be dealing and having those emotions be stuck inside of our bodies. Um, and you know, they always come to this breaking point. And once they acknowledge that they need healing, you know, they start to question. You start to go into this questioning phase. Okay, what can I do? How can I start? Like what exactly do I need to take the first step, right? And they get afraid, they get scared because it's overwhelming, right? Because they've been used to this type of behavior and limiting beliefs and fear for so long that they don't even know how to break out of that to have them start in that journey, right? So they start to doubt themselves, they start to fear, and some of them even retreat and don't even take that first step, right? Because they rather stay in fear and trauma than to take the risk and get over some of that fear and trauma to experience happiness, abundance, love, right? All of the great vibrations and high vibrations in life. I mean, when your body gets used to something, when your mind and heart gets used to something, even if the change is positive, you're still afraid. You know, even if the change is positive, they still might be afraid, right? Might be afraid of something good. I mean, that is some deep programming in your subconscious mind for you to feel that way, right? And most of us on the outside looking into this person, we might look at them like, wow, that's how can that be? That's so illogical, right? I mean, how does that even make sense that you're afraid to step out of something bad into the good? It doesn't have to make sense for us on the outside. It has to make sense for the person who's going through this journey. They have to understand that, right? People on the outside, we can only help and support. But at the end of the day, the person that wants to decide to go on this healing journey, they have to take that step, right? And thankfully, most of them do, right? But unfortunately, they take that final step and make that decision when something catastrophic happens, right? Some of them are facing near-death situations, right? I mean, they're at the brink of giving up. And they come to this point that they just have nothing else to live for. They've become that numb. And that's a very dangerous place to be at. Very dangerous place to be. Because in an instant, you can snap. And there you go, right? You can snap and never come back, you know? So to make that decision, right? To finally break through, even if it's scary, even if it's something good, even if it's something positive, they finally make that decision to take that first step. They're taking some action, right? They're taking some action. And then initially, that first step, it might feel good, right? It might feel good at first, right? Because they sense this newfound feeling or person or side of them that they haven't felt before in a long time, right? But remember, these traumas are deep. Some of these people have been dealing with it for many, many years. So it could be good at first, and then they'll have a series of low points, right, where they revert back to those feelings because it'll come up. That energy will resurface unless you really do some work, right? Do some inner work, introspection, right? A lot of self-healing. If that's not happening, those emotions, those memories, that trauma, right, will come up. And the thing about trauma and the thing about emotions and energies is that if you have those trapped inside of our bodies, and let's say you go back to that memory, your body physically creates the same chemicals that was created when the trauma happened. So you're basically reliving that moment over and over and over and over until you come to a point where you've actually released all of the energy from it so that you don't get triggered anymore, so that you don't have this energetic charge, of getting triggered. That's when the healing, that's when the healing is there, right? That's when you're going through the healing. So the healing process is long. It's arduous. It's painful. It's daunting, overwhelming, emotional, right? It's a roller coaster of emotions. And even when I'm saying that, it might be very, scary for some of you, right? I mean, some of you out there right now watching this on the other side of the screen might be thinking, dang, like for real? Like, I don't want to go through all that. I'd rather be living and, still in my own bubble of how I am now. But there's always a but, right? There's always a positive side. But despite all that, you can experience all the good stuff, right? You can find yourself again. You can love yourself again. You can love others again. You can find joy. You can find something that you might love to do, right? And then throughout that healing process, you're going to realize and dig deep and find that authentic self, your authentic self. Because once you feel that relief, once you feel that release of all those emotions, and it just, leaves your body, you're gonna look at the world like a brand new person. It's like your eyes are opening up, and you can finally experience the world in a crystal clear way, right? All your senses are going to be activated. You're actually going to be listening to people, right? Listening to your loved ones, your friends. You're going to be more open-minded, open-hearted. You're going to be a lot more positive, right? So all those things can happen, but over time, right? Initially, when you start, over time, there's going to be peaks and valleys as you move along your healing journey, right? And hopefully over time, if you continue, right, this healing process, this beautiful journey, those dips are going to be at a higher level, right? To a point where your dips is going to be moving up in an upward trend on the graph, right? So, like I said, a lot of people, it may be scary for them to start to heal. And most times they need to come to a breaking point where they've realized, okay, I can't go on living like this anymore. Something has to change. That's the initial point, right? And sometimes they get inspired, right? Because maybe someone like me, right, comes along, and it's not coincidence, right? It's probably by divine intervention, or the universe, right? Or your soul or your spirit is just radiating that energy, like, I need a solution, or someone comes along and inspires you to take this journey, right? Or you see someone else, maybe a loved one or a friend, going through the same thing, and deep down inside that that's what you want to do. Like, your spirit, your soul is screaming to you, like, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do, right? So it gets to that point. So the healing journey, is it all rainbows and butterflies? No. No. Is it all an upward trend? No. Is it a necessary journey? Yes, indeed. Indeed, it is totally necessary. Everybody should be going through this. Everybody has something that they can heal from. And once you experience the healing, and once you go through this journey, you will have so many realizations about you, yourself, about the world, about your relationships. You're going to be reacting from a clearer mind, a more open heart, right? Hopefully a more compassionate space, because most of us who are riddled by trauma, we tend to look at the world or our situations through a very negative lens, um, and the crazy part is, some of us, we do that, with our behavior, but deep down inside, we know we're not like that. We know we're not that type of person. We know we're a more positive person, but yet we still act that way. But we act that way because we've been conditioned by all of this trauma and pain and suffering that we've had to live with for so many years, right? It's like a natural reaction. That's the things that we have to get through. That's the things that we have to unlearn. That's the things that we have to heal from. Okay, that's the things that we have to heal from. So, I also want to talk about some other, bring on some comments that I've received on my various social media, to talk about them, because I want to make sure that you understand you're not the only person Because you may feel like you're the only person that like needs healing, or you may feel like, God, I've been through so many crazy things. I don't know if I can heal from that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can heal from anything you've been through. I have clients that have been through the worst of the worst, right? And yet they still made the decision to go through it. They struggle through it, right? That's a given, but they still persist day in and day out because they know that they deserve better. They know that life has so much more to give. They know that they have so much more to live for than just living in pain and suffering, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, right? They know that. So if you can make that decision, take that first step, that action, acknowledge that, hey, I'm going to do this journey. It's going to be hard as shit, but I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it. Then awesome, right? Then awesome. So I had this comment on my TikTok page, on one of my TikTok videos, happily _jazzy. And it's a TikTok that I made about, telling people it's time to heal, right? Right. Especially right now, especially what's going on in the world right now. I think it's a huge time of transition, right? And people that can leverage this time that we have where we're alone and with our family members and kind of quarantined in our space and isolated, maybe it's that time. Maybe it's that time to think about, starting this journey, right? To transition and to acknowledge and take this first step, because we have the time right now, right? I mean, we don't have to, talk to anyone, right? We don't have to go to work. Some of us are going to work, going back to work, but some of us don't have to go back to work. Some of us have the luxury of being within our own space, right now, being in our own silence, our own solitude, to do some reflection, introspection about our life, right? And even that alone could be daunting, because Western society, especially here in the United States, I mean, it's tough for us to be by ourselves. But that's where all the answers lie. That's where true peace and happiness resides, right? In our own solitude, in our own silence, in our own stillness, right? So happily jazzy, she commented on my TikTok video. She said, I felt this. I've been healing childhood trauma this year. Wow. Been heartbreaking and freeing. It's a long process. She has the sigh emoji, right? So she felt what I had to say. And what I had to say is, it's time. The time right now is of the essence that we can start the healing journey. And she touches on, the healing of the childhood trauma, right? She's well aware that she has childhood trauma. Like I mentioned earlier, some people aren't even aware, right? They have to be reminded, or they have to be told that, hey, this is where this behavior came from, right? If you keep attracting, let's say you're a woman and you keep attracting, narcissistic men, right? And if we look back into your upbringing, let's say your father was a narcissist, right? That's very traumatic. So your subconscious is going to reflect that type of behavior, that type of person, and attract that type of person for you, right? 9 times out of 10, unless you are aware of that trauma, your subconscious is going to make that your reality, because that's what you've been used to throughout your whole upbringing. Narcissistic men. So you, growing up as a woman, you're going to be attracting narcissistic men, until a point later on, way later on in life, where you're going to be like, wait a second, why do I keep attracting the same type of man? It's the same type of person with just a different face and a different name, but same type of men, right? You're going to start to realize the cycle that's happening. And boom, hopefully at that point, like I said, catastrophic moment, right? Hopefully at that point, you will then start to realize it's something deeper, right? Because I've been attracting my past relationships, 6 men who are all narcissists. Something has to change. Something is happening here, right? At that point, your soul is screaming to you, like I said. So she's been dealing and healing from childhood trauma. It's been heartbreaking, right? I mean, I mean that's real stuff. It is heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching to have these realizations, to have this understanding of what you've been through. You sometimes even get mad at yourself. Not sometimes, you always get mad at yourself. You start to blame yourself. You start to, get very frustrated and angry and even bitter with yourself, thinking to yourself, like, how did I even how did I even allow that to happen to me? Right? But you did. Because if you were dealing with childhood trauma, you didn't know any better. You had no idea. Right? You had no idea. And your parents weren't going to teach you. They didn't even know. They had no idea themselves. So you were just in this cycle of behavior, right? Of negative trauma. And if you are at this position where you are aware and you are starting the healing journey, and you know that you're healing from your childhood trauma, you are going to be the one to break the cycle. And we're going to talk about that in another episode. Breaking the cycle, breaking the traumatic cycle of negative family behavior, right? But happily here, it's been heartbreaking and freeing. Such an amazing word, such an amazing feeling. It's freeing. Yes, it is freeing. You feel lighter. You feel free. Free from all of the negative emotions. Free from all of the heartbreak. Free from all of the trapped emotions, negative vibrations, right? The negativity. You're getting free from that. Free from the sadness and the grief, from the resentment and the bitterness, all of those low vibrating emotions. You're getting free from that. Okay. And then she ends it by saying, it's a long process. I told you. I mean, imagine if the trauma, pain, and suffering, it took you what? 10, 15, 20 years, right? I mean, all of your childhood. I don't know how old you are, you behind the screen, but for me, right, 25 plus years of all the trauma, pain, and suffering, right? You think one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year is going to have you completely heal from all that? It's going to take a long time, right? That's a lot of deep-rooted emotional stress, right? Seeds that were planted in your subconscious mind, limiting beliefs that your subconscious is holding on to, that's reflecting out in your own in your outward reality, right? That's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff you have to unravel. You have to let go. It's like you're peeling the layers of the onion, right? Off one layer at a time, and it's definitely a process, right? Sometimes you might even feel like you're going backwards. You're gonna revert back to, your depressive state, right? That's what it's gonna feel like. And some days you're gonna be on a, super high point. But the more you continue on your process, the more you're gonna experience, those positive feelings, right? Those positive emotions. Because the more healing you're gonna do for yourself, right? And I firmly believe that once we heal ourselves, we heal other people, right? Healed people heal people. Okay, healed people heal people. So I want to thank Happily Jazzy for commenting on there. Like I said, you can join me and follow us on TikTok with the Healing Tribe. You're more than welcome to join us there. We're doing a 61-day self-care challenge at the moment. If you're watching this right now, we're on day 49. So it's been an amazing journey so far. A lot of people are transforming. We're also going to be doing a third iteration that's going to be focusing on healing and entrepreneurship. Wow, what a crazy combination, right? Focusing on healing and then maybe starting a side hustle or, pursuing that dream of yours that you have. So you can definitely tune in. Still in the process of putting that all together, but we will start that on November 1st. So a lot of the Healing Tribe are online right now. I just want to give out some shout outs to everybody who are here. Tracy Hargrove, Flo Cash, K Blanco. Happy birthday to you once again, beloved. I see you. Miss Eliza, Noel, Sleeping Sun, Diana, Melissa Tower, Ebony, Fighting for a Change, Maduri. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your presence. Jessica L. What's up, cousin? Gerald Jones, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. Angela Carnes, thank you. So, like I mentioned, I'm going to be here every Monday, 8:30 to around 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I always talk about healing. I'm all about healing. We'll talk everything about healing and emotions and, energy, right? Spirituality stuff. I'm all about that. And of course, self-care, because that's what I love to talk about. Okay. If you have any other questions or comments, concerns, just leave it in the comments below. I always try to answer all of my comments, or you can follow me on my other social media handles. I'll be there as well. Please share this live or, this episode if you found it very beneficial, right? Like I said, I know a lot of us can use some healing. I know a lot of us right now can use some healing. I know you've been through a lot, but I also want to tell you that you're not alone. Okay. You don't have to go through the healing journey alone, right? You can go through it with an amazing tribe, right? Or you can go through it, with some help. Okay. And I know like when you start the journey, it can feel that way because we are vibrating at a very low frequency, maybe of unworthy or, worthless or grief or sadness, right? Even though you may be surrounded physically by people, you still feel emotionally alone. And that's normal, but you don't have to go through it all alone. Okay. You have people out there. You have me. If you don't think you have anybody, you got me. All right. So, once again, thank you so much for joining. This has been episode 2 of the Ripple Effect of Healing. I will be here every Monday, like I mentioned, 8:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Healed people heal people, right? I will see you next week. And remember to always protect your energy at all costs. Peace.